What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another morning stream for you guys after Spurs drew 2-2 away at Brentford on the return of the Premier League on Boxing Day yesterday. Almost like Tottenham have never been away, isn't it, Brian? We've got Brian in the studio yet again after yesterday. He was obviously live with you following all the action on the watch along with Ashmati yesterday. I was at the stadium with Amir following all the action live as it happened. Well, look, there's a lot of topics we're going to discuss today, and obviously the January transfer window and other clubs making signings. We'll get into those topics a bit later, but first we'll discuss all the goings on yesterday and what exactly panned out, and we're gonna take a look at the game, what went wrong, what went right, and then we'll get into everything else. So let's talk about let's speak about the match review first of yesterday. So we drew 2-2 with Brentford. It was a game which we've seen so many times before this season. I mean, how many times are we going to go behind and having to claw back the situation? And I was speaking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was saying, like, you know, the question is always, is it 1 point gained or 2 points dropped off when you come back from 2-0 down? And logic usually states in those kind of situations it's 1 point gain, because if you find yourselves in a situation where you're 2-0 down and then you gain a point, that's like you've shown good character, you've come back from a situation where you're very unlikely to get anything. So you've got to say it's 1 point gain. But with the fact of the matter is, we're always 1 or 2 goals down. Yep. So I think there has to get to a point where surely you have to stop saying it's 1 point gained when you're continuously giving yourself so much to do, and more. And now it's happening where we're giving ourselves too much to do, and we're getting maybe a point, but we're not getting all three because we're always coming back from individual mistakes and bad first halves. And we're now in a situation when we do come back from 2-0 down, it's still not enough because you're continuously putting yourselves on the back foot.
Well, I think what we've got to look at as well, Simeon, is not only do we look at it as 2 points dropped or 1 point gained, we've got to stop saying good character to come back. Good character is not going 2-0 down in the first place and having it repeatedly happening and then having to claw yourself back. These are professional footballers that get paid a hell of a lot of money, and we know what's going to happen. Other teams know what's going to happen. The fans know what's going to happen. Other sets of fans know what's going to happen. And yet this still continues. And we were given that line, conserving energy. Was that for the World Cup? If it was, the World Cup's over. That can't be used anymore. And you could have predicted this before the game even kicked off. Before the lineups came out, you could have predicted. We were just listening again. The stats of being 2-0 down for the 6th game in a row. We've been behind 9 games in a row. 9 games in a row. We've been at least one goal
in the Premier League, I believe.
Yeah, we've been at least 1 goal down come half time. These stats are so predictable. How can that not be stopped? By a team, by a manager. The manager, you've got to look now. I'm still 100% Conte in, but he is not. He is not beyond being asked questions and being held accountable. It just was the just Spursy return, wasn't it? I hate to say it.
Yeah, I guess it's difficult where you lay the blame totally or first and foremost, because as you say, I think when this keeps happening again and again, I think Conte has to take some of the blame for sure. But as well, you know, things like Eric Dier taking a swipe at a ball unchallenged and going out for a corner and us conceding that first goal, the defence was a complete mess again. Like, he has shown since he's come to this club, he can get performances out of players like Eric Dier and stuff like that. Yep. To a decent level, and that's what got us top 4. But when we start with the defence like we did yesterday, of that back 5, like, obviously they're probably better than how they showed for like the first goal, but they're not. It's not. This isn't a defence which could compete with the others above them in terms of who we have personnel wise. It's probably like a Europa League mid-table, or probably worse. It's probably like a mid-table, maybe upper bottom half like Premier League side. So to expect Conte to continue to work miracles with this back line is also something that is unrealistic. And we know we've needed upgrades in the back line for a while. We needed it in the summer. We only got we got Longley, which I think he's done okay, but we needed more than him. Right wing back, we need more than him, and we've continually going with this back line, and I'm confident if we had a stronger back line, we'd be better in possession, building from the back, and would be a lot stronger defensively when teams come onto us. At the moment, this back line is very brittle, and that's why we've conceded, I think, by far now the most in the top six. And I think as well, when you look in the top half, I think we're probably one of the most conceded.
Without a doubt. When you look at it, that back three yesterday that started cost a combined total of £5 million. £5 million that back three cost. And if you look at it, if you want to expand on the back five, you had over £70 million worth of talent, if you want to call it talent, on the bench in Sanchez and Royale, which just goes to show how bad our scouting is, how bad our transfer activity has been. But you spoke about the two players. So for the first goal, I think the Tanganga Tony matchup was wrong. For the power on the deck, yeah, but Tanganga against Tony in the air is just a non-starter. And he was yards off him on the header for that.
And it led to a difficult situation because Tanganga came over to Tony, leaving him, and he was in a tough situation because if Tony wins a flick on, because Tanganga was more on the right side and Mbeumo was out on the left, because he moved centre to deal with that header, if he missed it, man, and Mbeumo was free on the left. He did miss it, and it meant Dier had to come over, leaving even more gaps, and Longley and Bissouma had two men to deal with. They didn't communicate it very well at all, and it just created complete problems for that first goal, and it was a bit of a shit show, to be honest. But I think it led from a long ball over the top. It really should have been Dier dealing with that header. I think if Dier deals with it, even if Tony wins to flick on, at least Tanganga is with Mbeumo. The fact of the matter is, Tanganga left his position. He thought he could win the header. He didn't, and it led to all these problems.
It did. You're back on the money. Then we've got to talk about Eric Dier, obviously. I mean, first of all, Eric Dier has been here now, 8 years? 9 years maybe, approaching, and he has had good periods. There is no doubt whatsoever he has had good periods where he is, and last season was one of them. But this season, since he got into the England squad, he has been absolutely horrific with every part of his play, and I don't even understand.
He was very lucky to get to the World Cup, considering if it seemed as though his form leading into the World Cup was he was trying his best to try and get himself not called up. But I think he was lucky, maybe not lucky, but in a sense he was a bit lucky in the sense that his form just after Conte came in was so good.
It was incredible.
That I guess Southgate overlooked the bad form leading into the World Cup and decided to go with him. But
how you do what you did.
But the last few weeks before the World Cup and now the first game after the World Cup, it's been shocking. It's been horrendous. He's making really bad Eric Dier-esque mistakes, which he was associated with before Conte came in. He was associated with these brain farts, individual errors, that it would happen at least once a game, basically. But he'd kind of ironed them out when Conte first came in for the first 6 months or so, and even maybe at the beginning of this season, he was also pretty decent. He'd ironed out these mistakes. He wasn't making costly errors as much. It'd gone from maybe one a game to maybe one every 3 or 4 games. But maybe we are seeing Eric Dier revert back to the type, and maybe we all knew that as much as we were all impressed with Dier and his form once Conte came in, we all knew that he needed a challenger to push him to upgrade so that he's in fear for his spot, or we needed to upgrade him, which is also definitely something, and have him as like a backup centre back. We didn't do either of those things in the summer, and it's in a position now where we're relying on him every game, because without him, our defence is even worse. But with him, he's still making costly errors now on a gamely basis. But the problem is, we can complain about Eric Dier all we want. After Romero, he's probably our best defender. That's the reality right now, and that's the state of our back line.
It is, and like I said, what I find with him is obviously, when there is no pressure on him, and when he wasn't in the England squad, and he was not in the limelight, he got himself back in the limelight by getting himself into that England squad and putting in performances like that. But as soon as he starts getting the recognition and is deemed an England international by the manager again and is in the limelight, these stupid, pointless mistakes happen. And I mean, yes, he can make the odd mistake like he did against Liverpool, he did against Newcastle. That was heat of the moment stuff. But the clearance that he attempted yesterday, he had time to bring the ball down. He had time to put his foot on it, let the ball bounce. He had time to see what he wanted to do. But he just took one wild swipe for no reason whatsoever, and it goes off for a corner. You can't be having that. Like you said, after Romero, that's your top defender at the club. That's the concentration levels that we have. It's unacceptable. It is totally and utterly unacceptable for him to be able to do that. And you know what will happen? He will start against Villa.
Oh, he has to.
That's the state. That's the you have Romero. Well, mate, I'd rather start Romero on the right if he's starting, Longley in the centre, and Ben Davies at left back. Or left centre back, sorry. If I had my choice, that would be the back three against Villa, barring Romero being available and fit, ready to play. It's got to stop. You can't, even if he is the better defender, you've got to be held accountable. And if you make errors like he has been making, you can't just say, I'll carry on making them, you're in. You've got to say, no, Eric, you're letting the club down, you're letting the side down, this can't happen, someone else is getting a go. That's what it's about. Like you said, there should be someone to compete with him. But
the reason I don't think he will do that is because Conte trusts him. He's one of Conte's most trusted players. With all the talk at the moment, he's going to get a new contract. So which seems to be the case. I think Conte's gone on record many times of his trust in Dier. So I think he isn't going to, even though he's in a bad spell of form, I don't think he's going to take him out of the team.
But how can at the moment, I understand managers trusting players. I understand that, especially when a manager comes in, everyone clean slate. I get that trust. I get the loyalty. Loyalty is a huge, important thing in my life, away from football, in football, everything. But when a player keeps making costly errors, these aren't just errors that aren't leading to anything. They are costing us. The Liverpool game, the Newcastle game, yesterday. You have to say, listen, I trust you and everything, but your form is letting you down. And I can't, especially with the way things are at the moment, with the fan base, with everything that's coming to a head, you can say I trust you, but surely you've got to say, you're making mistakes. I need to take you out of the limelight. This can't keep happening because the club want top four, and these points are costing us, especially then when you go on to see all our rivals around us win.
And it was a very costly day yesterday. In terms of how the game went statistically, let's get look at the stats from SofaScore for yesterday's game. So as you can see, actually Tottenham had 61% possession compared to Brentford's 39%. However, Brentford's XG almost double of Tottenham's, 2.15 to 1.07. So Tottenham definitely, according to the stats, lucky to get a point. That's what they're suggesting. Yep. Despite the fact that we had 15 shots to their 9, 8 on target to their 5, they had the better chances. In fact, they had 3 big chances, and we didn't have any big chances according to SofaScore. But if we look in the difference between the first half and the second half, the XG was 1.21 to Brentford, 0.24 for Spurs, and total shots. We still had more shots than them, but on target was the same amount. Second half, it was a lot more dominant from Tottenham. XG still in Brentford's favour, 0.94 to 0.83, but 9 shots to 5 shots on target to Brentford's 2. If you look at the progress bar as well, I think it definitely tells the story of the game here. You can see the first half, majority. Is it working still? Yeah. I think no, because I've changed tab. One sec. Doesn't seem. I think it's frozen. I'll try. Let's try and reconnect it. Give me a sec. But I think basically, the when we get it up in a sec, but it basically tells the story of the game. It should be working now. Yeah, you go. If you look at that, first half, the green is Brentford, blue is Tottenham. First half, majority Brentford, Tottenham very little attacking. In fact, the first half, I don't remember a chance we had.
We had a couple of those shots where Kulusevski came in and they P-roller shots. Son had one as well.
Yeah, from outside the box.
Yeah.
But look in the second half, Brentford obviously get their goal very, very early on, and then it's all Tottenham pretty much from like pretty much from the hour mark all the way to the end. And considering how we finished the game, you can argue we were maybe unlucky not to win, but again, the fact that we were 2-0 down, I think you can't keep doing that and expecting to get results. But the stats shows a fairly even game. Probably you have to say Brentford more unlucky than Tottenham not to win. If we're looking at individual players, it says here, well, according to this actually Hojbjerg was man of the match. Let's talk about Hojbjerg actually. Looking at his heat map yesterday, I think that probably that represents exactly what kind of player he is, covering lots and lots of ground. Had lots of touches, 2 out of 2 dribbles attempted, but also the ground duels quite strong. 5 out of 8. Long ball accuracy decent, but he got most importantly, he got his 9th goal contribution in all competitions yesterday. 4th Premier League goal, 5th goal in all competitions as well. We're now sitting in December for a midfielder like Hojbjerg, who not known for a player who likes to get goal contributions. We've spoken a lot about Bentancur getting goal contributions, but Hojbjerg stepping up at a big time yet again for Tottenham this season. He's done it a few times now when we've needed him to. Are you getting more and more impressed with his ability to affect things in the final third, coupled with the fact that he's very strong in his defensive game as well?
Well, you know, Simeon, how much I love Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. I've loved him since we signed him. I was totally gutted. Do you remember we were at the Aston Villa game and I went to the toilet and he scored of all players? He just keeps improving. He keeps improving. He's a player that you want to talk about trust. Hojbjerg doesn't let Conte down. Hojbjerg goes on to games and says, and he's like, I trust you, do what you do. And he's doing exactly that, if not exceeding. Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg does what Conte asks of him. Yes, there's some games he could have done a better pass or been more proactive or been more involved in the full game as opposed to patches. But you know what you're getting with Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. You know that he's going to go out and perform and give everything to the cause, unlike Eric Dier. But what he is adding more consistently is his goals, and like you said, his goal contributions. And those goals, if you look at those goals, have all come at important moments. They haven't been like when we're 3-1 up and you look at the Champions League goal against Marseille. They have all come at times that really, really matter. He keeps going from strength to strength. Yes, could he be upgraded on in the market with a big purchase? Yeah, he could. Do I think we need to? He's the least of our worries. He's fundamental to me in this squad. And like I said, the defence is the one that needs work. But very, very impressed with him, but not his midfield partner of the day.
Agreed with that. Yeah, I think Bissouma definitely struggled a lot more. Obviously, you end up getting booked as well for a foul on Ivan Toney, and I think there were big question marks going into this game because we knew Bissouma was probably going to start, seeing as Bentancur's out injured. Ollie Skip as well with illness, so we knew Bissouma was going to get a start, and it was probably going to be in his less favoured formation 3-4-3, which he hasn't really shone. And I was kind of hoping that going to this game, he would have spent a lot of time working this formation and get the right balance.
Yep.
He would gain in confidence as well with some really good performances just before the World Cup, leading and some looking quite confident as well in the friendlies before the season restarted. But unfortunately for him, whether it be because it was a 2 against a 3 and he was outrun or whatever it was, he definitely was struggling throughout the game, especially on the ball. wasn't really able to impose himself, and only really got into the game once Brentford was starting to sit back a bit. Once they were 2-0 up, and he was given a lot more time and space. But it does worry me how he's struggling when he is being pressed a lot for some reason. I guess it's difficult when you're up against 3 centre mids and you're in a 2. It's going to be naturally a lot harder, and maybe he's struggling to find that balance. But we need him to get up to speed in this formation as quick as possible, because he can't be a player that can only play in one formation, and that's too hamstrung.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I looked at it when we signed him. We were all very, very excited, about the prospect of what he could bring to the squad, bring to the table, and he had the COVID when he first joined, when we went out to Korea or when we were out in Israel. I can't remember which period he had COVID. I think it was Korea, which would have slowed him down a bit, obviously. But I really thought players like him and Jed Spence and others like that didn't go to the World Cup and are new to the squad, we're going to get this time under Conte and really flourish, and have Conte have the time to say, right, now I can put a lot more time and focus into getting you into the player I need to be. And yesterday, and every single time, in all honesty, when he's come on when he started, he's flattered to deceive. When he comes off the bench, he has made big impacts in games. And you can see the player that we bought and the player that we think's there. I still think he will turn out to be a fantastic player for Tottenham Hotspur. But right now, he is flattering to deceive when he has 90 minutes, in my opinion. And he's very lucky that that second goal was ruled out for offside, because he tried to do too much. He had a heavy touch. He tried to turn on the ball, falls over, and that could have been 2-0. Very, very lucky that was ruled out for offside.
Yeah, it was a marginal one. He lost the ball in a very dangerous area. He didn't get very lucky. I did feel like he was a bit better when given time and space, which was good, and it allowed us the platform to build and put Brentford under serious pressure late on, and obviously nearly getting all 3 points. But it was worrying how poor he did look in the first 45 minutes, or first hour really, and that's something he needs to get to grips with as soon as possible, because we need him. We can't be so heavily reliant on Bentancur in this formation. We need him to be putting in similar level of performances, and I do think quality-wise he's capable of it.
Yep, I mean, the thing that got me yesterday, and I was talking about it with Ashmatic during the watch-along, is you look at Brentford, and Brentford know what their strengths are, and they play to it. They play to their strengths, they do what they got to do, and they get the job done and put in performances. We categorically know that our defence is a huge, huge issue. A huge issue. And if you look at our forward line, and if you look at people like Bissouma, Bentancur, our strength is definitely going forward and attacking the players that we have moving forward. But we aren't playing to that strength. We are so worried about protecting the defence that we're like, we've got to look after this, rather than saying, do you know what, let's go and hurt teams and play to our strengths. And Bissouma could be a huge asset in that. And we are not utilising him in the areas we need to. We are not utilising the forward line the way we have to, and it's concerning.
Let's talk about that fun line. Obviously, Harry Kane getting back on the score sheet after his penalty miss at the World Cup, and nearly getting a second with a header which hit the bar as well. Very unlucky not to get a second there. So look, obviously that's happy days. That's the positive. The negative, though, a lot of people talking about is Heung-min Son. Another performance which he flattered to deceive. I did think there were times where he was breaking into space with pace and looking to drive through the heart of Brentford, but didn't really get into the box or have any serious efforts. There was one, if I remember, late on, which we were right behind. It looked like it was heading right for the corner. It went through the player's head. I think it was a good save in the end by Raya. But he had 3 attempts, I think. I think they were all from outside the box. And all efforts which are fairly tame. He hasn't had the best season so far. He hasn't looked like the same Sonny of last season. He didn't score a goal at the World Cup for Korea, although he did have that great assist which got them through, but he didn't score a goal. I mean, people are worried about him at the moment and his performances, and yesterday's performance didn't do enough to alleviate those worries. What's your thoughts on Sonny right now?
So I think Sonny yesterday in the second half, when he went a little bit more central, definitely impacted the game more than he did in the first half. But this isn't the Heung-min Son that we have seen for seven years or whatever it's been. He has set such high standards for himself, and we expect so much from him, that this season is complete night and day. Do I think he will come back? 100% do I. We've got to remember last season, at this time last year, he'd only scored 2 goals as well. And then he absolutely went on a goal. It became a goal machine. But it is concerning, isn't it? He's not having that much involvement. He's not having that much of an impact. Even some of his link-up play with Harry Kane looked off yesterday. There, overhit passes, and that's both of them. That's not just Son to Kane. Kane, I don't know if you would have heard this stat, or heard it since you got home, but Kane in the first half had the fewest touches, including the 2 goalkeepers.
Kane did.
Yeah, but back on Son. We know he's got in him. There is definitely something up with him. There is definitely something up with him, and we need to find the solution, and quick, because again it's another lacklustre performance, and they're starting to rack up now, aren't they?
Unfortunately, this season for sure. And the problem with Sonny is, I think his biggest strength, I think he's one of the best in the league, is running in behind and his finishing.
Yep.
And obviously shooting outside the box. Those are some of his biggest strengths. I think when it comes to his dribbling ability, taking people on 1v1 when there's very little room, being in congested areas, he can be a bit... And also his hold-up play. I think when he's relying on those things, when he's not scoring and he has to rely on those other things of his game, he can be a bit on the periphery and he can be a bit ineffective. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. I'm not saying he's finishing off. I don't think he's getting to the finishing positions as much as he was last season. He's not being found as many times running in behind like he was last season and getting in those one-on-one situations where he's so clinical. And I feel like a lot of the defenders are getting behind him, making sure they're not turning him, and he's having to rely on the balls to feet, holding play, trying to take people on in congested areas. And at the moment, that is not his forte. And each player has their strengths and weaknesses, and I think what he's good at, he's world class at. But those things, I don't think he is world class, and that's those aspects of his game, and that's where he's failing at the moment. And whether that's a team structural issue, or whether that is the formation, it was getting the best out of him last season, so there's nothing to say why can't he get the best out of him this season, but it just isn't at the moment. And you got look at the goals he scored against Leicester, even like those are worldies, which we know he's capable of, but you can't rely on scoring worldies week in, week out. You have to get those bread and butter running in behind, and goals which that's where you get 20 goals a season. You don't get 20 goals a season scoring 20 worldies. You have 5 or 6 a season maybe, but you need those tap-ins and the ones where the formation works for you. And at the moment, I feel like that's where he's struggling, and it does beg the question whether he is ultimately, the way we're playing at the moment, whether he's completely perfect for that role as we see it. Because we see what Kulusevski can do. Well, his strengths are in one-on-one situations and are in congested areas. I think he lives in those areas, Kulusevski. And I see even yesterday him thriving a lot more. And even when he's maybe not scoring, he doesn't score as many goals as Son. He's still effective in the game when you give him the ball in these tight areas, and he can make something happen for you. He can turn a player a lot quicker in these tight areas and use his strength a bit stronger. Whereas Sonny at the moment isn't. So it's difficult what the solution is. Obviously, I don't see us signing a replacement for Son anytime soon, and obviously Richarlison's out, so we can't put him in. So we're going to have to persist, but it's interesting to see where this is going to head. Do we adjust his position? Do we put him maybe a bit further out wide where there's more space? But then those are the spaces where Perisic is operating. He's a bit
who was
further out
fantastic
wide,
yesterday.
who played well. So you don't want him to kind of take those spaces. So I don't know what the solution is right now for that Son conundrum.
So I think,
is it on him? Is it his fault? I don't know.
There's 2 things that I'm going to bring up now, and both through the World Cup. And the first thing that I'm going to bring up is, do you remember we were speaking when we were doing one of the watch-alongs together, and you said how these small teams are now getting so tactical? They're seeing what to do now. It's not just about these moments of magic. It's more about defending as a unit, being disciplined. I think a lot of people took notice that they all knew Son was great last season, or been great the seasons before, but in a 3 with Kulusevski and Kane, I think people became a lot more aware of, right, we need to stop Son. And I think these teams are doing their work on the training pitch to say, right, this is how we're going to utilise or stop Heung-min Son. And it's paying dividends for them. And I also think when we talk about the positions, I think we need to start looking at Perisic having a run up there, because we saw how good he was in the World Cup, playing as not permanently, but just as an option. We haven't used Perisic, I don't think, in that front 3 once. In a big game, and we saw the impact he had against for Croatia in the World Cup. And in that second half yesterday, he was getting forward more. He was nutmegging people. His crosses, we all know how lethal his crosses are, and that needs to be looked at as an option. I think not permanently, but when Son is doing this, maybe it is bringing a Sessegnon on, or putting Ben Davies at left wing back and moving Perisic up the pitch to have an impact, because he was doing bits for Croatia, and he looks like a different player when he's up there.
I agree that he had a very good World Cup in the left wing position. For me, I still think Perisic's best position is left wing back, in my opinion, in our team, because I think I know he had a good he did play well, but he was essentially playing like a left wing back for Croatia, but obviously a bit more further, with a bit more attacking responsibility than he does for Spurs, because we've got a front three ahead of him. But I felt like he was tracking back, he was doing all that dirty work, and when he was getting in those forward positions, because Croatia was sitting deep, usually when they get forward, they have a bit more space, which is like him at left wing back for us. I think if he was to play at left wing for us, I don't know if he would be as effective, because I think he finds those spaces at left wing back, because the fullback that we're up against is usually he's dealing with Son. So that fullback comes inside, leaving that space for Perisic to go on the outside and play him. If Perisic was the one who was getting all the attention from the fullback, I don't know if he would be as effective as he is a left wing back, in my opinion.
Surely it's worth a try to see if it works. You never know unless you try.
I think if Son continues like this, I think something's going to have to give, and I think that might be that could be something we can look at for a few games, just to see how that goes, because I think Sonny at the moment isn't having the best time of it, and sad to say, because he's such a good player and I love him so much, but he needs something. Maybe we need a run of Perisic there. Maybe that could be a solution just temporarily. But for me, long term, I still think Perisic is a better wing back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just want to say that as well, just before I get loads of hate saying that I'm anti-Son. It's got nothing about anti-Son. I love Heung-min Son. I think he's a fantastic world-class player, but he needs help. He needs help, and we have to look at options to solve this issue. And I think it's worth giving Perisic a go, maybe even in the FA Cup against Portsmouth, to say, right, here you go, let's give this a go. And see how it works, just to see if this is something we can add to our team. Should we need to change things around, as opposed to saying, "Oh, maybe it will, maybe it won't."
All right. In terms of where that point leaves us standing, though, we can bring up the phone just to get the table up there. There you go. We're still fourth after that point yesterday, after 16 games, which doesn't sound too bad, but. You got United behind, 2 games at 4 points behind, but 2 games in hand. They're going to be playing today. Liverpool now, they're coming into form. 1 game behind. They're 5 points behind with 1 game in hand. We are 2 points behind City, but they have 2 games in hand. We're now 3 points behind Newcastle in second, and obviously sitting there right at the top is something we don't want to see. We're now 10 points behind Arsenal. And they have a game in hand as well, which is Man City, which they might or might not win. But look, we're clearly in a dogfight for top 4. There's no doubt about it, and we can't afford to be, going too many more games without improvements in the side in terms of signings, and obviously we need players back from injury as soon as possible. But I mean, in terms of the league table at the moment, do you feel like our position is a bit like a house of cards, in terms of a few bad results we could be in 6th or 7th and all of a sudden everyone's going mad? Or do you still think we're in a solid position in the league, like 4th position, like the position right now isn't too much of a worry? Like from this point on, 4th after 16 games, it's still like that's something to build on.
So I'm going to start calling this as I see it now, and I don't care about the blowback or the comeback on this. I'm not even concerned I'm concerned about top 6. I'm being deadly serious now, and you look at it, Newcastle are going to flex their muscles. Chelsea have been flexing their muscles. Liverpool have flexed their muscles. United will flex their muscles. We are in a very precarious position right now, and you look at these games. Villa at home isn't going to be easy. Palace away is one of those games that I absolutely fear whenever the football fixture list comes out. We've got to play the filth at our ground. I'm dreading. It's the first North London derby at White Hart Lane that I'm absolutely dreading. We've got Man City twice, and I am very, very, very concerned about top 6. In all honesty, I'm not holding back anymore. I'm very, very concerned. I'm very, very concerned with what we're going to witness over the coming month.
Well, let's talk about then the January transfer window and the state of play, because Conte's had a few interesting comments about what the club are looking to do in the January transfer window, and there's some interesting reports from Ali Gold. So Conte has been quoted in this press conference saying that, let me bring the quote up. Let me see if I can bring it up on here. It's Fabrizio Romano's tweet today. Can you bring up the phone? So this is Conte saying, Conte on January signings, we will try to do something, but we have to follow the club's vision. Tottenham want to invest on young players, as we did with Kulusevski and Bentancur, talents, but with accessible salaries. This is what we'll try to do. There are some comments. First of all, from Jaco Cat saying, I don't see where the problem is in this. Our best signing were exactly those type of players, Bentancur, Romero and Kulusevski and Udogie. The only problem is we need to actually spend the money and bring those players in. But there's people who are obviously commenting. There's Dan saying Enoch out, Zeus saying Sai, he's not happy with it. Bluesface says now every club wants the structure. Barnaby says, here's the club vision, and a picture of Dier, Davis and Sanchez. Radmore says, Spurs fans crying about this, but look how it's currently working down the road. Also, we literally signed 33-year-old Perisic in the summer. If the right player comes along for Conte with a reasonable salary, then I'm sure we will sign them. So a lot of mixed reaction to those comments from Antonio Conte. Ali Gold today as well, saying despite his he says Conte knows Tottenham can't dither and rely on what they already have in January despite his public words. Conte is desperate for new faces that will improve the squad. Before I get on to your comments on there, we have super chats. Let's read a few of them. Sava talks.
Big up Sava.
He's specifically talking on this situation, so I think I waited to read it until we discussed it. He says, unpopular opinion, Spurs need a master reset. New owners, new director of football, new manager, new head of academy. All start on the same page and have a plan. Owners are awful. Conte isn't a manager to build with, and youth is poor. Now, looking at these comments from Conte, I'm happy. And I'm conflicted about them. I can see both sides of it. On one side, Conte isn't usually a project manager. He, according to Ali Gold himself, he doesn't like to develop youth players. He likes youth coaches to do their job in terms of when he brings in youth players, they need to be ready for the first team before he uses them, rather than him developing him himself and stuff like that. We knew what Conte was before we brought him in, and we knew that if we were to bring him in and we're going to make this work, we're going to have to satisfy the players that he needs, and we're going to have to bring them in, and we're going to have to get the right profile players for Conte. On the flip side, we did bring in Kulusevski and Bentancur, two young players who, at the time, he said these are young players, who fit the club's philosophy, and a lot of people are unhappy about that. But these are probably two of our best signings of recent times. We have also signed, as one of the comments said, we have signed Ivan Perisic, which is definitely a Conte signing, and 33-year-old. That was definitely a signing to satiate Conte. When we're looking at a project, should Conte be more? Which, by the way, just saying, by these quotes, he says this is what we'll try to do. So he seems to be working with the club. He said on a number of times that he has a good relationship with the club and specifically with the board. So should Conte be looking to work within our parameters and try and find compromise to try and find these players like Bentancur and Kulusevski, who are young, who have high ceilings, and look what Arsenal are doing. They've kind of doing that project. Young players who they're bringing through, who have very high ceilings, and they can build that team together. Should he be looking to do that if he wants to be a success here, or should we be should we be saying whatever you want, you get? There is no, we should be spending however much money we want to spend. Doesn't matter if you're signing old, experienced players who might be done in a couple of years. We should try and get as many of those players as possible, and go forward in that vision, and with the knowledge that in 2 years a lot of these players might have to be upgraded on. What kind of should Conte be looking to work more in a long-term vision and stand by that, or should we know what Conte is? He's not a long-term vision manager, and we should know what we're dealing with in that sense, and just try and make him happy while he's here.
Well, first of all, when you bring in managers like Mourinho and Conte, you know their MO. You know what they do. You hire them based on what they've done in their past, like in all walks of life. So you know what you're getting with Conte. I actually retweeted that Fabrizio Romano tweet with a picture of Stevie Wonder saying that this guy has more footballing vision than the Tottenham Hotspur board. You can't keep doing this. Like with Dele Alli, we thought we struck gold. Look what happened. This doesn't always happen. And I love how it goes from buying young talent once for the future, but we never have the managers to play them in the future because that manager's gone, or two managers are gone, then they've got players they don't want. It's either we get them really, really young, or we use that term old and experienced, like a Perisic. Why not go sign a 26-year-old, a 27-year-old, a 28-year-old that may cost a bit of money? Why has it got to be either you're at the start of your career or you're like Perisic at the end of your career? There's a whole pool and range of players there that you can do. And this board and this ownership haven't realised that if you attack the issue you're trying to solve with quality, you won't need to keep spending money to replace the players that you've missed. I don't understand the logic. I don't understand how this club can come out and say we're trying to work within the vision. We have no vision. The vision we have is to build skyscrapers, to build cinemas, to host events, to have the NFL, to have Anthony Joshua, to have Tyson Fury, and all the. That's the vision. That's the vision. And sign all these sponsorships, all these partnerships. No money. We're working on a budget. We can't. There is no vision at this club. And the sooner people start realising this and see that why, again, I'll go back to it, we either buy them very, very young, but when we do buy them very, very young, what we're doing is stopping the people like Alfie Devine, like Lancaster, and all the young prospects that we do have coming through, Harvey White. We're working to get you in the first team. Oh, no, we're going to sign youngsters, so you go even further back. Or we're going to sign at the other end of the spectrum that are ready to their career. They're just a stopgap. They're just a quick fix. It's enough. And I was on a stream with Sava last week, and I don't know if the person that said this was in the comments. What I'm finding with Conte now, and it was bang on the money. Someone said if you look at it like I have to through sobriety and everything, you have the 12 steps. Antonio Conte right now is at the acceptance level, which is like, yeah, all right, whatever. We all thought Antonio Conte was going to come in and call this board out and not stand for this and shout and scream and demand. And I am in a categorical state now. I don't expect, Levy out people don't expect every single target that Antonio Conte or other manager wants. You're living in dream world if you think you're going to be successful and get every single one of them. But compete for them. Go in for players. Go in. Put a bit. We wanted Bastoni. He doesn't want to come to it. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to leave. How do you know? Did you put a bid in? Did you put an official bid in so Inter Milan accept it and then you talk to the player? No.
I think a lot of the time nowadays in modern day football, how usually there's conversations between agents and the players and stuff before an official bid comes in. I don't think clubs usually make bids without having knowledge that they're the players wanting to come.
But there's the thing. If you put that bid in, and so let's just say with just a player who's like, oh, I don't want to go to Tottenham. But then you have a bid accepted, you go over. Surely, listening to Antonio Conte and his vision, not the club's vision, his vision, will be like, oh, mate, this sounds interesting. I get it. And like what Newcastle and other clubs do, they hear what the vision is and they know that the board are with them. Like what's going on with the filth right now. Then you go have a look at that stadium, which is an architectural masterpiece. You look at the training ground, and you think with a player that's coming in there, I don't know, Champions League, Antonio Conte, best stadium in the world, best training facilities, and they're still going to say, now I've seen it. How do you know? How do you know unless you get that opportunity? But we can't do that. We can't do that. We won't do that. And working in within this wage structure, we hear this all the goddamn time. If we're going to compete, things have to change.
It's interesting. I feel like Tottenham at the moment have a bit of like an identity crisis about what we want to be, because we obviously, like, when you don't have, well, supposedly, let's say it's a given that we can't spend like Man City and Newcastle now with their big salaries, and Man United and whatever. How do you, if you can't outspend them, then you've got to be smarter than them. How do you be smarter than them is getting a manager with a certain way of playing, with a forward-thinking philosophy for attacking football, getting young talent which are ahead of the competition, ahead of the game, spotting these talents and getting ahead of the competition and promising them game time and building them up together. And that's what we do with Pochettino. That's what a lot of the time is how we got ahead of the game during that project. Obviously, we had him for 5 years. We had relative success in terms of where we were from before that. Obviously, we didn't win anything, but that's what you do when you're building a project. You mold it, everyone together, and when you're looking at a long-term project. But the problem with Tottenham is we've been through that. We now have Antonio Conte at the helm right now, who's a manager who is almost he's come in at the end of a cycle for our previous project, and now he's either been tasked or with improving what he currently has to a stage where we can compete, and he's also now kind of starting a new project in a way. But he's not a guy. Is he a manager who you want at a style of project? Because he's not really a project manager. He's a manager you come in with a very good squad, and he's tasked with getting the best out of that squad. But right now, we don't have a squad which is capable of winning now. But because we don't have the money, we can't go and outspend our competition.
We do have the money.
No, I'm saying money that City and
sure,
City and
sure.
Newcastle, because we can't outspend them, we have to be smarter than them. But by being smarter than them, we have to have a project. But now we have Conte. So you see what I mean? It's kind of not functioning at the moment. It's kind of like we're not sure what we are. Are we a project team which needs to be smarter than the opposition to kind of outsmart them and get ahead of them with young players and with a philosophy manager and build something, or are we a team that wants to compete right now and win right now and have Antonio Conte here, and by doing that we need to have players right now ready to compete, and by doing that we need to outspend very quickly, because if you want to win quickly, you need more money, but we're not in a position to outspend our rivals. So it's a kind of disconnect. I don't know what we're trying to be, and right now it's kind of like we want both things. We want to be a project with Conte here. And there's kind of there's something that logically doesn't quite connect there. I don't know, where does it all end? Is Conte really going to change, not change his ways, but is he going to adapt and become part of this project, or is it going to all end in tears, or are we going to back him? I'm not sure where it heads. Logic states it's all going to end in tears. It's
going to, mate. It's going to end in tears. Listen, you look at it, and I'm going to use Liverpool and the signing they made yesterday. Liverpool had one of the worst starts to their Premier League history, or recent history. And Liverpool, who are looking for new owners, have said, right, what can we do to help you? You've got 2 long-term injuries in Jota and Diaz. What can we do? I'll tell you what. Let's go get a youngster who had a blinding World Cup, and let's move before anyone gets a sniff of it, and chance and wrap it up and do it. We've been speaking about our kamikaze, pathetic, abysmal defence. We should be acting ahead of the pack and go, do you know what? We've just put a bid in for Milan Skriniar. Bang, there we go, in he comes. And I'm using Skriniar as an example.
There's no reason, though, or just on that example, for example, Pedro Porro. We know the price.
Yep,
we know it's a position. We know, apparently, we like him. We're clearly interested in him. There's no reason why that deal couldn't be done already if we weren't haggling to get every million off, basically.
Exactly. Look at. We talk about how quick that Gapco thing happened. You and me are talking about. Within an hour, he broke it for Romano. Within an hour, here we go. We desperately needed a right wing back, and look how long Jess Spence started. It's 5 million apart. It's 4 million apart. It's 1 million apart. They want it in this. They want it in that. Levy wants this. They want that. We had a month to plan here. And you didn't even look at 30. I think it's 37 million Gakpo's gone for. That's not big money when we're talking about it. And that's quality. Quality. But instead of striking before anyone gets a sniff of anything and doing things, like I said, Porro's the perfect example. Skriniar, whose contract is coming up at the end of the season. There are players out there that you can make a move for right now ahead of the pack. But no. We need to sign some 4x4s. We need to do all this. We still haven't got Conte's contract sorted, Kane's contract sorted. Kane's getting older, Son's getting older, Lloris needs replacing. The defence is a shambles. But hey ho, let's just carry on.
So what are we? Do you believe? So the question is, basically what Sav was saying. Do we need to change everything?
Yep.
And does that include but if we do change everything, does that include the manager?
I've said
and
this.
Then start a whole new project, or do we say, we're still in fourth position. We've still got some very good players, and we just need some big investment on some big players rather than a whole new project.
So I've said this.
It's difficult.
I've said this many a time. There isn't a question you could ask me where you say this happens and ENIC leave that I will ever say no to. I don't care if it's relegation. I don't care what it is to get them out. There is not a question that you could ever ask me where I will say the question will end and ENIC leave that I will ever say no to. It's gone. We're getting beyond the stupid levels here now, and things have got to stop, and we need to stop this.
Well, the window's not even open yet.
Like, the window's not even open. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the goddamn January window, and it's a week before it opens. Sick of it.
Let's read through some super chats here. First from Azad
Just
Hamid.
to go to the bathroom. Oh, 2 seconds.
No problem. I'll read through the super chat. Says Azad Hamid says ridiculous. Apparently the manager is coming out saying he is happy with the defence. Ridiculous. He's clearly not the man for the job. Conte out. Michael Hellman says the club is my joy and my ruin. This community mitigates my frustration. Hashtag come on you Spurs. Kev Williams says 5th league game in a row we've conceded the first. Poor. I think it's more than that. Isn't it 9 league games in a row? I think it's 9 games. Maybe it's 7 out of 8 in all competitions. But I think in the league, I can't remember the first time we scored the opening goal in the league. It's been a long time. Lee Richards says we've got a great manager working miracles at our club, taken squad that's not even top 8 squad into top 4 last season and got us there again this season. Get behind Conte, folks, and demand Levy backs him. I'm kind of leaning more in that. But the problem is then it's not going to work with this board because this board wants to clearly start a new project, and I'm happy to sign young players and stuff like that, which is fine, especially if they're going to be the quality of Bentancur and Kulusevski. But we also need players who are ready to compete right now if we're gonna have Conte be here, and maybe that's where the disconnect is at the moment, and I don't know where it's gonna head. Brian Churnit, my grandpa, big up to grandpa. He says, please be positive. We are doing lots right. Football is getting a mental problem that keeps the players positive. It does not help shouting at them. And Jaden says, completely agree with Brian. Yeah, I agree. I think we have to try and be more positive when we're at the games and stuff. And I think the conversation surrounding this club, I think a lot of people are turning very negative very, very quickly. And I do agree with that. And I think positivity, especially from the stands, definitely does help. And I was at the game yesterday, and there was fans sitting right in front of me, and every second they're saying F this player, F that player, and it doesn't help anything. And even when we scored, he was still complaining. And I never feel like that it helps encourage the players. But I can also understand sometimes frustration with some fans when they've seen the same thing so many times, and the players aren't getting some players anyway don't seem to be getting any better, and that's where the frustration happens. But I did read your super chat, Azad, didn't I? Yeah, I did. But what do you reckon about this from Azad Hamid? Says ridiculous. Apparently the manager is coming out saying he's happy with the defence. He's clearly not the man for the job. Conte out.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen that, and it baffled me. It baffled
but
me.
he's not going to come out and say, look, I think he's been very. I think he's been. We've known he wants upgrades in his defence, and the fact that he's saying we have good centre backs and things like that. I mean, what do you want him to say? Yeah, our defence is rubbish.
No, don't expect him to say that. Listen, we all know. I think his outburst against Burnley, when it all started after the Man City win, when we lost 1-0, that interview caused ripples, and he's been blatantly told to rein it in interviews. I understand he can't come out and criticise the players, and apparently from reports he was absolutely apoplectic yesterday with the defence and was going mad. But you can say, listen, we're looking at areas of strengthening. This is an area we need to look at. But to say whether it's a play that he's playing with Levy, whether it's him trying to give the carrot rather than the stick, I don't know. But it's just a bizarre comment to me.
Jake says Ali Gold has just said that behind the scenes that Conte is livid with the defending. So it doesn't seem to be. Maybe it's something more about more with PR than it is with actually how he feels.
Maybe it is, but then again, if he is livid. And he's making these... And you've got to... Listen, Daniel Levy is watching this shit. Mm. And if he is honestly thinking, oh, this defence is going to keep me in the top 4, this defence is going to end our trophy drought, this defence is A-OK, then he's more delusional and stupid than I even gave him credit for. If he is livid with this defence, like I said, like Gapco, like Nkunku for Chelsea... Go get a player. Go sign defenders now. Go put bids in before January, just like Liverpool did, like we were saying before. Yes, they did the work in the summer with Virgil van Dijk. New Year's Eve, phone on to Southampton. How much do you want? 75 million. Bang, 75 million. New Year's Day, he's at Anfield holding a scarf. That's what big clubs do. That's what big boys do.
And yeah, I think that's also kind of why a lot of fans are getting a lot of anxiety currently at the moment, because of teams around us like Liverpool and Chelsea have made some big moves already before the window's even open, and we seem to be deciding whether to send Gil out on loan or not, and that's what we're basically that's basically what we're interested in. Gakpo and Nkunku, as you say, two big transfers to two of our rivals who are not sitting back and waiting for things to happen. They're going and doing things. That's always been a big issue with how we operate, is we're never proactive enough. We're never on the front foot. We never get ahead of the competition, usually anyway. We usually wait. We're very reactive, wait for other clubs to make their moves, and we hoover up whatever's left, basically. Yep. And I think that is a bit outdated in terms of, it might have worked. I mean, you can't even argue it did work, but it might have got a few good deals over the line in the past. But I think in this day and age, with so many clubs vying for similar positions now than we are, similar goals to us, we need to be much more proactive than we are doing. We need to have things in place as soon as possible. And I know it's difficult because everyone's in the same boat right now, it seems. And it's difficult to get these players, but at the moment we seem to be lagging behind in these deals, and we need to be ahead of the competition, not lagging behind. And it's always been the case with this board, and whether that'll change while they're here, I mean, it's hard to believe it will.
Yeah, I know. You got to say, for every good deal that we have, I could probably, and I think everyone in the comments, and yourself, Simeon, and even non-Tottenham fans, for every good deal we've got over the line, could probably name in the region of 10 to 15 bad ones for every good one.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Good business, that is.
By the way, the link is in the community section for all members to come join on. I want to know fans' opinions on where the club's at in the game yesterday, and everything we're talking about when it comes to Conte and the January signings and the vision of the club. What do you make of Conte's comments when he says he has to work within the vision and of the club's vision, signing on players and stuff like that? So the lines are open. I want to know what fans think. Come join us, join the rendezvous link in the community section if you want to come on and have your say. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult right now when it comes to it's very difficult when it comes to the rival clubs, how they're how they're performing right now in January and getting ahead of the game. And I don't know for Tottenham right now. I think for me, I don't like a lot of people complaining about Conte and our style of football over the last few weeks and stuff, and before the World Cup, because we keep going behind and it's been, some moments it's a bit turgid, but then late in games, we're turning it around and it's all right. But a lot of people are starting to turn on Conte a bit in terms of the football we're producing. But Conte, when he first came in, was getting good levels out of these players, but he hasn't been able to sustain it. So for me, it's more on improving the quality of the squad and serious investment, rather than saying, look at this squad, it should be playing a lot better than it is. I just think a lot of these players were playing above their quality, and now they're reverting to type a bit.
So can I just very quickly read? Bob Spurs just messaged me.
Yeah.
Said, can you read this out, because he's driving home. So Bob, Superman, you are listening. So he said, we can't have a vision without longevity. A vision requires a goal, and Lenik have none. And so all those who say Lenik have done all business side correct are completely wrong. They've bought a football club, yet have consistently failed to better the main product, the football team. We don't have an identity crisis. We have no identity. I think that's bang on the money. Well,
if we have no identity, that is an identity crisis, isn't it?
Either way. Everyone gets what he's saying. I get what he's saying, and I completely stand by it.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, to an extent, because before ENIC and Levy came in, we'd never been in European football in the Premier League era, I don't think, and now we're.
Well, that's a bit hard because Sugar. Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, you're right.
Maybe we were there once in the 90s, and we got knocked out with 99, and then we got knocked out by Kaiserslautern the first time of asking. Now, European football is so regular for us, we don't even look at it as an achievement. So you can't say he hasn't improved. Like, from that point of view, you can't say things haven't improved on the pitch ever since he's taken over. But we know that we don't really push on when we need to, and that's the big issue with them.
Like I said, it's all well and good being in Europe, but it's the finances that are increasing. How many trophies have we won in Europe? We've been to one final. We know how that ended. Constant amount of time in Europe. With that money coming in, that should be strengthening the team to take the team to the next level. Has it? No.
Apparently some breaking news on
oh, God.
Tanguy Ndombele. Napoli to hold a meeting with Tottenham in London in the coming days to attempt to negotiate the option to buy for Ndombele and complete a permanent deal. That's good news, isn't it?
Yeah. If there's one man you don't want to attempt to negotiate with,
it's Daniel Levy. And that's also, by the way, another frustration for me is we were told that Levy was going to take this step back and he wasn't going to be involved as much, and Paratici was going to take the reins. But it does feel like as if that isn't as true as they made out to be.
And I have to say, and Simeon, you know this, myself, Danny, Ryan Isaacs, Bob Spur, Sava, Stell, Henry Wright, Rez, Barry, Nick, Sean, Phil, all the people that have stalked Levy out have said this all along. All along. Now, I get a lot of grief in comments on this channel, on the YouTube, and every single time, it may take a while, but it comes back to what I said has happened again. And here we are again.
Well, nothing's happened yet.
He's not taking a step back. Exactly. There's been no change. There's no change. There's no step back.
But January's not even there.
Oh, mate, don't start that, Tim. Don't
stop.
Hey, mate, we know what's going to... I can't wait to speak to you at the end of January. I can't wait.
You might be right, and you probably will be right. But the fact of the matter is, January isn't open yet. So can we say that it's all fallen apart before it's even they've had an attempt to do anything? And I know, and this is coming from a person who's frustrated with the fact that Chelsea and Liverpool have made big moves already, and we have not. And that is, and I'll tell you, I'm very frustrated by that. But can we say it's all fallen apart before it has?
History repeats
You're
itself.
predicting it will fall apart, and you're getting angry because you predicted it.
my heart overhead again.
Because you can see further forward, and you might well be right. But the fact of the matter is, we could announce a signing tomorrow. Like, we don't January hasn't opened yet. We don't know yet. I'm not saying you can only make your judgments on 31st of January, but you can. I think you can.
No, I know where you're
judgments
coming
leading
from.
up to it, but the window hasn't opened yet, and they need to have a chance to see. I want to see what they're going to do at the moment, but I agree, it's very frustrating, and it's not great at the moment, especially after a bad result yesterday. It makes me feel worse. Let's start getting some fans on, and we are going to speak to Sava, who sent in that super chat earlier in the stream, which we read out about Conte. He is now called into the show, so let's get him on.
What's up, Sava?
Sava, good to have you on, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like I'm just about to echo everything that Mr. Daigle has said.
I want to know from you what you called in, what you want to know, what you want to speak about specifically. Is there any topics that you've called in to speak about?
ENIC, Levy, Paratici, and Conte.
Okay, what do you want to say? What's your opinion? Get it all out there.
Back here. Go on, the Sav.
I mean, first of all, what makes me laugh is I read all these comments from people that are they're so Spurs proud that they can't actually see the truth that's been going on at our club for 22, 30, 40 years, whatever it may be. For example, what you were just saying there of, we're defeated before the window opens. If I had £1 for every single time I hear that from somebody that still has this belief that Spurs are going to act like a big club during a window, it baffles me. We have a fan base, I'm going to rant now, we have a fan base that told people like myself, Stell, Brian Daigle, Henry Wright, Hoover, everyone, on all our shows in the summer, this is the best summer we've ever had. Look how they're backing Conte. This is amazing. Then all of a sudden, when the football is absolutely dreadful, some of the worst football I've ever seen as a Spurs fan, he's not being backed, which people like myself and Daigle and Stell, etc., told everyone that he'd not been backed. Now we're in a position where people are saying, just back this man. He will build over 3 to 4 years if we give him what he wants. This is so nonsensical. I can't understand any Spurs fan if they think they know about football. First of all, Conte has never been a manager that goes into a club like Tottenham Hotspur and builds. He's never done it. That's not his skill set. He is a winner when given the best players. That's what he does. Second of all, we all know he is not going to be backed. He's not going to be backed to the level of player that he wants.
Correct.
Sorry, there's someone that's just come on with...
Sorry, we'll try and mute them. Can you mute them in the background?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go.
So we know he's not going to be backed with the players he wants. Yeah, Conte-type players. We also know that he's not going to be here as a long-term project manager. So what are we all doing here? We're all wasting our time. He's literally just said to Spurs fans in a number of interviews, we want young players. We don't want to pay salaries, right? But fans are still going, if you back him, he's going to do well. And my last point is this. If any Tottenham fan tells me they want success, but is ENIC and Levy in, then they are a liar. And it is taken upon people like myself with a YouTube channel, people like Daigle, people like Tottenham Away. It should be people like yourselves with a huge channel like We Are Tottenham TV should be beating this drum to get this fan base to know that these owners are frauds and have no success as a priority at this football club. We owe it to this fan base, but no one will call it out.
Savage, you know what it is?
Plenty of people call it out.
Yeah, one thing I will say, and I've always said it, and I'm going to say it now, and then with Simi, and Simi knows what I'm about to say. The one thing I will say with this channel, they may not be as vocal as I am on every single where I go, but the one thing I will say about We Are Tottenham TV, and people know I have a very, very close friendship with them, and it's beyond friendship, it's like family. If it wasn't for We Are Tottenham TV, I wouldn't have been given the platform that I now have to come on and rant and bitch and moan
Brian,
and what.
Brian, I'm not having a go.
No,
I'm just saying,
no, I'm not having a go at you, Sava. I'm saying there's people that have been saying to me, why don't we are top? They give me and other people like yourself now, Sava, the platform to come on and have it. And like I said, Sava, this isn't at you. People say, why don't we, our Tottenham TV, get involved? The Super League, they were heavily involved. Everything they do, and like I said, people have got to realise they may not like Sava, you and me, and Tottenham Away, and Henry Wright, and Shelfside Spurs, and Cooven the Kang, and everything. We will dedicate shows and hours and hours and hours and hours to this. It's our channel. If it weren't for We Are Tottenham TV, the people wouldn't have the platform.
When it comes to the conversation, yeah, go on, Sava.
Sorry, listen, I agree. I'm not having a go. What I'm saying is there are so many huge Tottenham channels out there
Yep.
that I feel we've all got to come together. This for me is we have to stop celebrating fourth like it's something amazing, right? I see so many people in the chat going, oh, if someone had said fourth, you'd bitten your arm off. No, I wouldn't. What, to finish fourth again and then not buy Champions League standard players? Why do I care, right? So for me, last word on Spurs, We Are Tottenham TV, expressions oozing. All of these people, if they really truly care about Tottenham, as a fan base, as a community, as YouTube channels, as Twitter channels, whatever, everyone should come together to rise against these owners. Because these owners, Brian,
Yep.
they said three things. The first thing when they joined this club was it was about finance. It wasn't about football. They told everyone it was not about success. They hoodwinked millions of Spurs fans into thinking that if we leave White Hart Lane, move to a new stadium, that we would then invest the money back in and compete. You've now got Champions League football, the best stadium in the world, the best training ground in the world, the director of football people want, two of the best forwards in the world, and the message coming out from our own manager is we are going after young players with lower salaries, right? If anyone cannot read that and go, what on earth are we doing? Then you have the club you deserve.
But isn't that how like you start projects? If you personally, you said in your super chat that you want a new ownership, new director of football, new manager, but that signals to me you'd want to start a project, and then that. But how do you start a project and get ahead of the competition if it's not spending it on young players with high potentials?
Sim, there's two different things here. You know, ENIC have been here 22 years, so they're nearly a quarter of a century into their project, right? And they're not.
We all know football teams go in cycles, don't they? You don't just have a project that start like there's a cycle that happens. So no. Then there's the end of a project, then there's a new one starts.
No. I've heard this for 22 years. Well, every time we get a new manager, we get told this is going to be the plan. We're going to build. We're going to do this. It's the same. The reason for my super chat was this: if you get new owners, new director of football, new manager, that all sit down and go, right, this is our plan for the next 5 years. They announce to the fan base, guys, girls, the next 5 years, there's going to be some ups, there's going to be some downs. We're going to go through some rebuilding, but this is our long-term vision. And no matter what football manager or what director of football comes into the club, we will always stick to this philosophy long-term. What these owners do is they go from Poch, who plays good football, to Jose that doesn't, to Nuno that has zero style, to Conte who's a dinosaur. There's no plan, there's no ethos, there's nothing coming from the youth academy, yet people want to build with this manager who isn't a building manager. Nothing at this club is aligned, and I'm sick of it.
So, as I said to you when we did our show last Friday...
You think Conte's a dinosaur?
Oh, for sure. His football is so far removed from what all of the clubs that are successful in the world do. It's unbelievable. He plays wing backs with a club that have no wing backs and awful centre halves. Right? He focuses all our play on not having the football when our strength is Bentancur, Kulusevski, Heretic, Son and Kane. He cannot adapt. He does not ever try any other formation than the 3-4-3. For me, this guy is great if you give him world-class centre-backs, world-class wing-backs, we're good to go. We're not that club.
He's right. On that part, he's right. If you bring in Antonio Conte, you have to, like we had Jose Mourinho. These managers have gone to teams, and we all know Jose and the famous. He's not won a trophy at Tottenham, and regardless of what, he has been back right. He has two towering, commanding centre backs, like he did at Chelsea, like he did at United, like he did at Real Madrid, like he did at Inter. And other players that suit his profile, suit his agenda, suit his style of play.
Why would you back? What would you want Spurs to back him then?
But that time has come and gone, right?
No,
Spurs have made. Hang on, hear me out. You asked a question. Hear me out.
Okay, go on.
Right? He's been here. He's had 9 signings. If they had any intention of backing him, his first signings would have been, right, I'm a manager that plays 3 centre-halves and 2 wing-backs. The first thing we're going to do as a football club is sign centre-halves and wing-backs, right? We're now about to enter his 3rd window. We have not signed 1 top wing-back since he joined. We've not signed 1 top centre-back since he's joined, right? What's the point? If we don't back him again in this window, then what are we doing? Because he's not a manager that builds. So what's the plan?
That's fair. No, that's a fair point. I think when it comes to the players that we need, but we're having 2 different conversations. You're criticizing Conte, but you're saying he's a dinosaur because he doesn't adapt. But is that like he performed miracles to get us into top 4 last season?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
He did.
No, he
yes,
didn't.
he did. He did.
No,
Let's
he
be
didn't.
honest. He did.
Right,
He
okay.
came in the club. We were a complete mess. He shorn things up. He got everyone in the same direction. We actually did play good football for a number of games last season, for a number of times. And now in a situation, right, where he did need the centre backs and the wing backs to really push on. We haven't done that, and we're still in 4th. So isn't he performing probably par for what we have?
Right, first and foremost, right, this whole number 4 conversation is such a new thing in football that fans convince themselves is success. It's not. We're 4th after 16 games, haven't beaten a single good team this season, and we've got a run of games coming up which will see us right out of that top 4. Second of all, when he took over last year, how many points off the top 4 were we?
9.
Okay, 9 points off of the top 4, right? If you have a look at the top 4, who on earth was he competing against for top 4? It was such a diabolical league.
Top of the league.
Right, but they weren't this good last year, were they? We beat them by 1 point, right? This is a team that had no strikers last season. So he did a good job, but this miracle, this whole word miracle, no, Nuno was just dreadful.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't make him a miracle.
No. We had a squad, right, that in consecutive seasons finished 6th and 7th. Right, it'd gone under Mourinho had been sacked. We had Nuno who'd come in. It was a complete disaster. Everyone, like Kane, wanted to leave. You got to remember that he was playing awfully, and everyone was saying the whole squad was absolutely awful. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to do anything. And he got us into the Champions League, into top 4, which was an impressive achievement for last season. I don't think anyone could disagree with that. I can disagree with it because it was a dreadful league. If you look at the league last year, right, the top 2 ran away with it by an absolute mile. Chelsea were only close to us at the end because of the whole Abramovich thing where they capitulated. The rest of it was West Ham, Spurs and Arsenal going for 4th. Right, this is an Arsenal team that didn't have a striker in their squad. Conte had Kulusevski's son and Kane. If we had finished below that Arsenal team, I would have been absolutely devastated, right? Now, to your other point, this was not... We've got to stop doing this. When people say it's the same squad, it's the same players, we've got to stop this. Compared to what Jose had, Conte had miles better players. Romero, Bentancur, Kulusevski, even now, Bissouma, Perisic, Longley. Compared to what Jose had, this is not the same squad of players. We've got to stop that. Again, that narrative is not correct. So you think a different manager could be... What could a different manager do with the squad we have right now better than what Conte's doing?
that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's not about when you. Okay, so when you say could be doing better, at the end of the day, when was the last time you enjoyed watching Tottenham play?
I enjoy them in the second half.
I mean, I don't. I haven't enjoyed watching Tottenham play for as long as I can remember. I've not enjoyed Tottenham under
So
Conte.
we were winning 4 and 5-0 at the back in the last season. You weren't enjoying it.
You know, it's now not last season; it's this season, right?
Yeah, but you asked me when was the last time.
No,
I'm
I have to
saying,
say,
when,
look,
I'm
one
saying
thing
when we were winning 4 and 5-0 back in the last season, were you not enjoying it?
I have to say, sorry, Savage, just the question this question came up yesterday, and I have to say the one game that I really, really enjoyed this season was our first game against Southampton. When we went 1-0 down, we didn't just sit back; we literally went for them, and in the second half we blew them away. I think that
Leeds game was exciting.
I think that Southampton game at the start of the season was a really exciting game, and I really enjoyed it. But that's it.
Fair enough. And you know, I was there. And listen, what I would say is this: when you look at these games, you're winning 4-0, whatever. Look at it. Southampton are bottom of the table. This manager has not managed to beat anyone good all season. Yeah, we have been slapped by Newcastle, Liverpool, Man United, who are below us, Arsenal. You name it. Chelsea played us off the park. His football, sorry, this is only for me, guys. We can look at it and go, we're fourth. This argument is so narrow-minded, it's unreal.
But we are
we're
fourth.
Yes, but again, fourth is what Spurs fans consider to be success. Yeah, I look at fourth and go, first of all, we're not fourth. It's not the end of the season. We're 16 games in. Teams below us have got games in hand to overtake us. Second of all, we're about to have a run of games where against teams that we never beat, right? That Conte can't beat this year. So I'll be honest, I've not enjoyed watching Tottenham Hotspur play this year. The second half yesterday wasn't good. We had more of the ball because they sat behind it, but there was no one-touch passing. There was no moving. There was no plan. It was just a lot of possession. And this is the problem. We're so easily pleased as a fan base. We're so easily pleased. People celebrating coming back from 2-0 down against Bournemouth. No, you shouldn't be 2-0 down to Bournemouth in the first place. I'm not going to celebrate that as a great comeback. Sorry, guys. It's just the whole thing is turgid. It's awful to watch.
So I'm confused by what you're calling for. So you want Conte gone and the board gone?
I don't know how you're confused. It was written plainly in English. I want a whole reset. The whole thing needs to change. The whole thing. Either this, if Levy and Enoch stay and continue to do what they've always done, which is not back managers with top players, then Conte is not your man. No matter what you think of him, no matter what I think of him, no matter what Brian thinks of him, he is not the man to get players like that and build. It's just not him, right? However, if you're going to back him, cool. Leave him there, back him. We'll play crap football. We might win something down the line. But the owners are crap. The director of football has been shocking. And Conte's football is aligned to top players playing, not bad players playing. So for me, the whole thing needs to change. The whole club needs a reset.
I get Sim. I get what Sava's saying. Listen, if you have Conte in, you have to back him with what he needs. Mm-hmm. That's the whole. Absolutely. That's the whole crux of it. If Levy said that 150 million in the summer and we spent it on 2 players that make an immediate difference and walk into that squad,
yep,
that's backing him. Saying you back him with 7 players, where 2, 3 maybe are getting regular football, 1 is out on loan who looks like he's going to be a real talent, but again, it's one for the future. Jed Spence, a club signing. I don't call that backing him. That's spending the money, but again, it's quantity over quality.
No, that's fair enough.
That's what Sava's getting at.
No, I get that, but then if we're calling for, I'm saying are we criticising the board for not backing Conte? Are we criticising the board for still having Conte? What are we criticising the board for right now?
Oh, the board are criticised. The board are criticised for everything. It's really this simple, right? It's really this simple. If I'm the board, I sit there and go, right, what manager are we bringing in? Okay, we want Antonio Conte. Why? Mm-hmm. Why do we want Antonio Conte? If the answer is A, to appease the fans after the Nuno debacle, which is what's happened, then get rid, because that's not what he is. If the answer is B, we're bringing him in to win stuff and to back him with top centre-backs, top wing-backs, top midfielders, then brilliant. But the problem is, we've done option A, haven't we? We brought him in as a rabbit out of the hat to appease fans after Nuno. He's been, look how unhappy Conte is regularly, even though he's saying he's happy. Look at all these press conferences and the uncertainty and the not signing a contract. Come on. People like Stell, Brian, myself, we called this from day one.
Fair enough.
There we go.
Sorry, I just don't know how we can keep going around in circles as a fan base. That we want to back a manager.
So if would you not want to back Conte in January then?
Listen, yes, but if you're going to back him in January, then back him again in the summer, then back him again in the next January. It can't be one or two players here or there. It's got to be that you bring him in and back him. But the guy himself, right? He's just said that we are going to be buying younger players on lower salaries. He has told us the answer.
But he also said like Kulusevski and Bentancur, who have been two of our best signings.
How often do you get a player like Kulusevski on a deal like that?
Yeah, you're not always going to get it right. We've seen this with the youngsters. Dele Alli started off well, disaster.
Yeah, but how many times do big money deals also end up?
No, you're right on that part. But again, we keep going young, and they'll come into their prime once this manager's gone. And then once that manager's gone, does this new manager that comes in play the same style of football, or do we go the other way? And then does he need to get rid of this player because he doesn't fit into his... Look, you look at the amount of players. Like I put a tweet out yesterday where it was 3 years ago yesterday where Arteta took over Arsenal against Bournemouth for his first game. The only players that's still in that squad were Xhaka and Saka. Mm-hmm. We still have Hugo Lloris, Sanchez, Dier, there's another Davies, Son, Kane, and out on loan, Tanguy Ndombele, Gio Lo Celso and Harry Winks still to come back. That's 4 managers ago. So these players, and they've had different players that play different styles of play, but these players are expected to play in the new manager's style, which doesn't work. Then we try to sell them, but we can't sell them because Levy wants too much money. Then the money that comes in for them, we don't get to spend. We get the cheaper options and the younger options. And yes, a Kulusevski and a Bentancur coming have done wonders. But as a Brian Hill,
Brian
to sell. Yes, bruv.
Right. So just quickly, I just want to clarify. There's lots of people in the chat saying they're confused as to what I want. I think it's really simple. Conte is not the right manager for Tottenham Hotspur because the board do not act like a winner like he has been at his previous clubs.
Bingo.
It's that simple. If this window, guys, Spurs go out and buy Milan Skriniar, right? Hakimi, then you go, I'm just using those two as, fill in the blanks of whoever you want there. Then you turn around and you go, okay, cool, I get it. I see what we're doing. But when you're talking about Adama Traore coming in, right? When you're talking about Dan James in the summer was linked with us in the last week of the window and turned us down. Then fans say to me, why don't you want Conte here? Well, what's the point? What's the point of having a manager with a set way of playing that needs the top players and giving him mediocre? It makes no sense.
Who would you replace him with?
Mate, listen, that's a completely separate argument. At the moment, I don't think it matters who is manager of Tottenham Hotspur. But all of this, will he sign? Will he not sign? All I know is we've got an owner who is hated by 50% of the fan base and has pulled the wool over the other 50%. We've got a director of football who is as dodgy as they come, right? You've got a manager that 1 week he's happy, the next week he's not. Will he sign a contract? Won't he sign a contract? Right? You've got a youth team that is producing absolutely nothing, right? All the while we're being charged the most for replica shirts, football tickets. The club is in an absolute mess. And, all you hear, Sim, is this, but we're fourth. That's all you hear. The club needs to pull in a direction.
All right.
Sorry,
Sava.
I'm so passionate about it.
No, you made some good points. It was a very passionate call. I enjoyed the conversation.
It felt very weird being on this side of the camera this time. But Sava, we're gonna speak later on, brother, and we'll be talking tomorrow as well.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Much
cheers
love.
For coming on, Sava.
See you later, Sava.
Pick up. All right, a lot to unpack there for the conversation with Sava. I think he does make some good points when it comes to Conte and the board. If you're going to have some manager like Conte, you definitely have to back him. You have to make sure that he's getting the players that he needs for his system. And if you're not going to do that, there isn't any point. But have Spurs and Conte gone into this with an understanding that Conte has to work within Tottenham's parameters, or have they gone into it with the understanding that Conte is going to be backed? That's a big question. But then again, I guess Sava's saying it doesn't matter either way. He just wants both gone.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, what we've got to remember as well is we got told when he came there's going to be a war chest, then there wasn't a war chest, then the war chest was 150 mil, and I don't think in modern day football 150 million pound to a Premier League, Champions League team is a war chest. 150 million. You look at it, when we got 86 million for Bale, what did we do? 7 players. None, or only a couple the AVB wanted. He wanted Moutinho, the Hulk. We got Etienne Capoue, Vlad Klirishes.
Yeah.
You look at it again, 150 million invested. That money was what Coutinho got. And we know what Liverpool did. We have a goalkeeping problem. We have a defensive problem. Bang, let's resolve those issues now. We get 150 million. We don't spend the 150 million. There's 50 still there. Again, we bring in 7 players because it's quantity, not quality. It's quantity, not quality, always. And if a couple of them become good, brilliant. But we don't buy the finished article saying, off you go. There you go. You slot right in. Benson Core, but you could claim was the finished article or is improving, but I'd say he's a bit more than a prospect. Kulusevski was a prospect. And boy, has he worked wonders. Boy, has he been absolutely incredible. But it doesn't happen every single time. And you can't keep hoping, because that's the way we do business, that it's going to keep happening. You'll get left behind.
All right, let's get a next call on. We got George in the background. Let's bring him in. George, how are we doing today? You all right?
Big up, George.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I'm well. How you guys?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while, but glad to see your face again. I hope things are going well. Anything you want to specifically talk about on the call? Is there any topics we want to bring up?
No, yeah, thanks for doing the conversation today, because it would have been very easy to rest on our laurels and sort of give plaudits to dragging a 2-0 down situation yesterday and just being satisfied with it. So it's a very, very relevant conversation to have for me. And definitely, I'm certainly not happy with the situation as it currently lies. I'm not going to be as vitriolic as Sava was just then. We've got to be a bit careful here. I don't think blaming the fan base, starting to blame the fan base and pointing fingers at each other, saying you're in this camp and you're in the other camp, is really going to help us. I think we've got to be really careful. We've only got to look at how that type of toxicity really hindered the sort of the Arsenal situation. I think there's a lot to be learned from that and the way that it was quite badly handled. I think from Levy's point of view, I think it's exactly what he wants. I think he wants us to be in 2 very much diametrically opposed camps. One, blaming the style of football that's being sort of laid out to us to watch. And there is an issue. I mean, if you are paying 70, 80, 90 pounds a ticket to go and watch Tottenham Hotspur, we have been reeled out a substantial amount of dross. If you're going to be paying Now TV to sit down and watch a Boxing Day game, you certainly don't want to see players who certainly seem to lack some commitment and who are sort of pretty much unfocused in what their jobs and roles are. Having said that, I think yesterday was a prime opportunity for Brentford to take advantage of certain factors that I mean, there were a lot of moving components yesterday, so I'm not going to blame any sort of tactical issues or the players yesterday. I think there was a lot to be said there. But look, if we look and address about you've discussed projects a lot today. Each manager is going to be a new project. It has to be by definition. Each time you bring in a new manager, you're dealing with a new philosophy on how to play the game, what they want, what players are on offer. It's always going to be a significant change. Conte, I agree with you, Sim, worked a miracle last season in getting us into top four. And I think some of the football being played towards the end of last season, you can highlight the Leeds game away, even Norwich last game of the season. It would have been so easy for us to capitulate, whereas other clubs were capitulating in that scenario. So I think a significant change was made last season, and yes, we did work a miracle last season getting into Champions League. ENIC have what they want at this point in time. It's taken them 20 years to focus on building a new stadium, putting it into a separate limited company, and that it is that stadium which is currently on show to the world each time we are on TV. That's what ENIC want. They wanted a purpose-built leisure facility in North London, built on the cheap from the supporters' backs. We've paid for that stadium. It's now in a separate limited company for ENIC to take advantage of. Levy says to us that all of that money that is generated is going to be invested back in the club. I'm not being funny here, guys, but ENIC and Levy have said a lot of things over the last 20, 25 years, and I don't believe a word of it. So Sava's point of view here is that we need an entirely new reset here of the club. In a perfect world where unicorns exist, and it's a fantasy, it's just not going to happen. There is not going to be a reset. We're not going to see Levy and ENIC give up their prized possession that they have for the last 20 years been trying to create. And it is the white elephant. I've called it that before. Fantastic stadium, great architecture, absolutely lovely. But we have now made an albatross, unfortunately, a rod for our back. That stadium is not part of the club. It is in ENIC's pocket, and they are going to. That was their goal. So the fact that we've only had one trophy in the last 20 odd years should be of no surprise. Now knowing that fact, so the case is now, how do we go on from here? Whatever we think of Conte, he is a man who has brought success to Juventus and to Chelsea. We've got him on board. It's a case now of trying to convince this board that we will not stand for not investing in this manager. He is the only shining light that there is, and no amount of trying to blame him for the situation that we're in is going to help. Either they invest in bringing in new players for this manager to play, or basically it's more of the same for the next 20, 25 years that we've got to expect. And we as supporters have got to come to a decision to whether we pay the prices that we're expected to pay to go and watch. And, that's a difficult decision to make considering how we feel about our club. But unfortunately, that's what it's going to boil down to. Do we want to... Look, Brian, you've made the decision. You will no longer buy any Spurs merchandises or anything like that, and I fully now agree with you. I just won't do it unless it's a replica shirt, or my kids are pushing me heavily to try and buy something for them. But I won't buy it from the Spurs shop. I'll buy it from elsewhere, and I don't turn up that hour earlier to the stadium in order to go and walk around the Spurs shop to buy something. we have been taken advantage of, and that stadium, unfortunately, now no longer belongs to us. It is a money-making, money-generating project for ENIC. As I said, the question now is, will Levy back this manager, or are we going to end up with another situation where a new manager comes in and it's again a repeat of what we've been, what's been dressed up to us previously? The question is, how many new managers are going to come and step into this role who are worth their salt if they're going to be treated in the way that we've been treating managers, which has been pretty diabolical, let's face it.
When you hear Conte say what he said, we're going to try and do things in January, but it has to fit the club's vision, young players with, not on big salaries and things like that. Is on one side, is it encouraging that he seems to be wanting to build a project and work within the club, and maybe that's something positive? Or on the flip side, is it negative that we're going down that route, considering Conte doesn't usually stay at clubs for long, and is he really going to be satisfied with these kind of signings?
No, he's not going to come out like you said, Sim. He's not going to come out and say, "Do you know what? Eric Dier's a load of crap, and we need to replace him." That's not going to happen. He's going to speak his players up. He's going to try and give them as much confidence as possible and inspire them as much as possible in order for him to get results on the pitch. It's what managers do. You've got what you are faced with, and you will give guidance to your board as to the players, the type of players, and what you want to do. So you will try and create an identity with the way that you play. You can blame Conte for the tactics that were being shown on the pitch yesterday and previously. However, what other tactics are we really looking at that can be played to give us an opportunity to win some of the games that we have been faced with? Now, we can speak to Stelz. Stelz far more knowledgeable than I am in formations and everything else. He's far more experienced. But in my opinion, Conte is taking the safest options in trying to get a result out of a game. And the whole philosophy of, if you ain't going to win a game, don't lose it, is one which is going to ultimately get you the best results. I simply do not think that we have the quality of player in the squad to allow us to play much differently to the way that we're playing. And we can all want attacking football, but I can guarantee you, had we gone gung-ho yesterday and tried to attack Brentford with the gaps that were being left at the back by that defence, we would have been picked apart. Tony was running rings and was far more aware of his play than Tanganga was, and even Eric Dier. I mean, Eric Dier is a converted centre-back, and Eric Dier feels that centre-back is now his position. That is not the position that he was being nurtured for the future. He has had to change and acclimatise to that particular position. And sometimes you get the feeling that his lack of focus, and look, you need to, when you're in defence, when you are a centre-back, your reading of the game has to be far better than any other player on that pitch. You see the pitch in front of you, you need to be barking commands, you need to be pointing, you need to be organising that defence from that position. Mm-hmm. There's no one at the moment who's taking responsibility for that, and Dier is that person who should be doing it. He had an excellent season last season, but unfortunately that area of his game is lacking. Now, I'm just picking on Eric Dier as one player. It's not just him. So what you need is you need to invest in this squad, and no amount of trying to blame managers after 20 years of what we've had to tolerate with that particular formula, excuse me, is not going to change my opinion that it is simply lack of investment and 20 years of lack of investment that has brought us to this position. Now, one transfer window is not going to change that. Yeah, so we've not had an entire Conte season. The players that we have signed, I don't think we can complain that Richarlison isn't a decent player. We have not had the upheaval in defence that is required. Mm-hmm. But again, ultimately, if you don't pay the wages and if you do not pay the transfer fees, you are not going to get the top players. And trust me, Conte will be the first person to say, I want a Skriniar. I want a top-class player. And Levy will be the first person to say, unfortunately, we can't afford it.
Yeah, I mean, George, I just want to add to that as well, because we didn't even talk about Simeon in the match analysis. Where we keep talking about the first team and improving the first team. You and me didn't even touch on the bench yesterday. That bench and the severe lack of quality on it. Yes, we have people coming back from there's no Romero, but just the sheer lack of quality on that bench. You look at all the other big teams around us. Again, there's quality, there's game changers. That was a hell of a lot of defenders, and the only one that with real impetus that may have been able to change the game and added a spark was Brian Hill. That's been down to lack of investment and neglect as well. The bench is laughable.
Yeah, we need more attacking players, don't we? I think that's not controversial to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a player who I would like to see is definitely, excuse me, is an attacking midfielder or a creative midfielder. I don't think we have quite had it this season with Sonny. You can try and blame Conte for that, but I don't think his performance in the World Cup warrants that we say that that's a Conte problem. I just don't think it is. I think that Sonny is suffering on two fronts. One, a hangover from a fantastic season that he had last season and winning Golden Boot. And the other is that he's now 30 years old, and there is a chance here that he may just be slowing down slightly. Now, I hope that's not true, because like all Spurs fans, I love him to death. But I think we have to look at what it is. We've got a first squad, prolific first squad players like Harry Kane and Sonny, who are starting to slow down. And I'm not really seeing how we are going to replace those players. Whether you can replace them or not, I don't think is possible. I think you have to slightly reinvent things. But the plan has to be from now, or should have been from about maybe a season or 2 seasons ago. But, you know, we are going to be dealing with our first team squad here that is going to start disappearing soon. And unless
do you need a glass of water, George?
Sorry?
Do you need a glass of water?
Yeah, I apologise.
Just making sure you're right. There you go.
Sorry,
I'll give you a chance.
I've done a bit too much talking. I'm trying to catch up with all this sort of historic not being on the team. Yeah, so listen, just to draw it to a close, perhaps, I still think that Levy and ENIC have a lot to answer for, and I think there is a lot of investment to be made in this squad. And I don't think complaining to each other and pointing fingers is going to help the situation in polarizing and creating two camps over the manager. It's quite clear that it's not a manager problem, it's investment in the manager. The only people who can change that are the board, and the only way that we can try and improve that position is to strike hard on the board, and that is to say things, unfortunately, at the stadium, bring out the chance of ENIC out, bring out the chance of Levy out, to try and influence the position, trying to heap more pressure on Conte and more pressure on the squad is not going to help.
All right, George?
With that, I completely agree. George, I just have to say, listen, just very quickly, we all know that the abuse that Emerson Royale gets, we know the abuse certain players get, warranted or not, people pay their money and they have their right to voice their, but without stepping over the mark. We all know that happens in football. It's part and parcel. The players know that, but it's got you. I've said it before. We're always focusing at the wrong people. It's that, and I have that famous saying that I say on every tweet, which is the once those players cross that white line on a Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, whatever it is, the result and the performance has absolutely nothing to do with Daniel Levy. However, the very fact that they're allowed to cross that white line, put on that white shirt and put in that performance has everything to do with Daniel Levy. And that's where the problem starts, in my opinion, and will never change.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. And look, the only time I'm really going to have a go at a player is is under the circumstances that Ndombele walks off the pitch in the way that he walked off the pitch. Hossam Ghali chucking the shirt away. I mean, that's warranted. But after that, the players are playing at the best of their ability, and Conte is doing the best he can with the players that he has got at his disposal. And absolutely, the only other people that you can really look at over the last 20 years for the lack of investment, and just go back and look at the history of it all, and look at some of the teams that we fielded, and even some of the players that we've actually bought, and hand on heart, say to yourself, listen, if you had spent a little bit more, if you had not been haggling over pennies with Jack Grealish, if you had not, decided to go for the cheaper option each and every time, that we would have been in a better situation. I'm telling you now, we would have had a few more trophies in that cabinet by now.
Yep.
All right. George, cheers for coming on.
Always a pleasure
speaking to you, mate. Good to see you, and I'll speak to you very soon.
See you later, George, buddy. Cardi Spurs.
All right, that was George. Next up, let's bring my grandpa into it. We've had a lot of negativity so far today in a lot of the callers. Can you hear us? Is he there? There you go. Hi, Grandpa. How you doing?
I'm hearing... Yeah, I'm doing well, but I'm hearing there's a huge echo when you two are talking. When George was talking, it was clear, but when you two are talking, I'm getting an echo. I don't know if that's general, or my computer.
Sorry?
Anyway.
Yeah. How are you, Grandpa, anyway?
The real echo.
Headphones. Is that better?
Yeah, you're both... It sounds like you're talking at the same time. It's not working. I can't hear you, but can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you hear me all right? Okay, because I'm pretty angry. I was able to watch most of the show, and I thought, as I love you, Brian, very much, I disagree with the anger that you and Sava were putting out. Okay. I think that will do more harm to the club than you can believe. If I was Conte listening to that, or I was Kane listening to that, I would say, I don't want to be in this club anymore, because it's so angry, it will do harm. And all I would ask you is to calm it down. Look at the things that are going on. Look at some of the good things which you're ignoring. He's taken on 5 players since he's been there. All of them are good. You didn't mention Perisic, a great signing. He's doing really well. And I think that what's happening in football at the moment, and you saw it in the World Cup in that final, how France played so badly in that first half. They were impossible. Everybody thought that they were still ill from their gap. But then they mentally changed. And that was exactly the same as we did when we played yesterday. In the first half, we were just out of touch. We weren't reaching the ball. We were letting passes go. Dier was appalling all the way through. But in the second half, we mentally changed. And who helped that happen if it wasn't Conte? Conte actually drove it into them and got them to change. And and he also said at the very beginning, when in the very first conferences he gave, he said, I will not get this team right until we've had three times when we can buy new players. This is now his 3rd time. We don't know the answers to that yet. We're complaining that he's not done anything, but he's been trying all over the place. There's rumours coming through, and they're not happening. The other issue is we don't have the money. Even with that thing, we don't have the money, and we probably need. whether it's ENIC out or somebody will invest in ENIC as a shareholder, which will put the sort of money in that the others have. There's something wrong with the way the way the organisations work. We should be on the same playing field when it comes to money. But having said that, I would say that we are playing some good football. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed seeing them come back. I enjoy seeing the fight, and I've enjoyed seeing how Conte has got some of the people. Maybe he's not the best project manager, and he needs the money to buy the right players. But he's got people that are coaching and bringing people out. I mean, for a while, Davis was absolutely appalling. He's brought him back. He seems to have gone back to where he was before. I'm not sure, but it's very hard to tell at the moment where we are, because mentally people are tired after the World Cup, and that break has done so much harm to the fluidity of where we were going. So, but I would say that constantly bashing Conte, constantly bashing ENIC, it's not, and Levy, it's not going to achieve anything. Yes, all the time say they've got to do better. I agree with that. They have got to do better, and I'm hoping that they will in this latest round of buying. But shouting at them and screaming at them like Savvy was, and some extent you were, Brian, I think it will not help the situation. It will not get them out.
Sorry, Graham, didn't mean to go. Don't get me wrong, I know where you're coming from. I know for a fact that I am one of the most outspoken. I can get very, very volatile. I can get very, very loud. Like I said, the reason I've done this and the reason I am like this is just because, and I know obviously you've got a lot longer history of following Tottenham and seeing the illustrious teams doing things. It's just pure frustration of just seeing things repeat itself. Like I said, I will always say when they've done well, that stadium, as I call it, an architectural masterclass. There's not a single thing wrong with it. That training ground is state of the art. Those things they have done well. But like when I was brought up supporting football, it was for the product that is on the pitch and for what goes on that pitch. And unfortunately, where I stand and many others, it's just got to the point, and this was before I came on YouTube as well, and this is before I knew We Are Tottenham TV. My patience, my faith, my belief, everything I have in them is torn to shreds every single window, every single summer, every single manager. I get where you're coming from with the anger from me. I get that. That is an issue that I suffer with, but it is just frustration that it keeps happening. And when you look at it right now, the problem that's the biggest problem that's really getting to me now, Grandpa, is obviously with the Newcastles of the world coming up. Manchester United and Liverpool up for sale. Chelsea are going to flex. And in a position of strength that we were in, we're moving down that ladder in terms of finance and in terms of, like you said, the money we can spend. And that's what's getting to me. That's the thing.
Brian, I'm still hearing you doubling, so I couldn't hear exactly what you said. But keeping pushing the fan base to be angry will not help. You're right in some of the things you're saying. I think you're wrong in some other things, but it takes a long time to actually build a good team. I mean, football it's very complex, and there's so much money in it, and the players go from good to bad and back to good. You know, there's very few that actually have made it for as long a time as Kane has been as one of the tops. So all I'm saying to you is there's got to be some patience, and pushing the fan base to be angry, like we were a bit when we were marching outside the ground, will not do us any good. If we keep pushing now, Conte will not sign his contract. He'll go. If Conte goes, Kane goes. If Kane goes, maybe Son will go. You know, and we'll end up by having to start to build again. And then we'll be the same problem. We'll be building, and after 2 years, everybody will be shouting, "No, they're not there yet. They're not here yet." It takes a while, and I really do believe it. I feel as strongly as you do in the opposite way. I think we have to support them wherever we can and all the time that we can. Yes, keep keep saying, well, we think you should have done this, you could have done this better, you can do that. But actually trying to get all the fan base up there shouting and booing at every move that they make will not bring good results, in my view. That's my view. I won't go on about it, but I just feel I was looking at the program there, and I thought, blimey, I'm going to leave We Are Tottenham TV because that's what I was doing. And I thought,
can't lose my grandpa. No, I can't be having that.
particularly Savvy. He's really, really angry. He says he's never seen Spurs play a good match. I mean, that's bollocks. Bollocks. I love watching them. I actually enjoyed the match yesterday, and I thought we turned it round, and mentally we turned it round. Those players, they played totally different to what they played in the first half, and we would have won it. I mean, Kane hit the bar, and Kane was great. Kane in the end was great, but it was terrible. He hardly touched the ball in the first half. Son, in the second half, he was back to normal, where he was fast, he was quick, he was turning, he was moving with the ball. He came back, and we were still missing, and we were missing in defence with our best person. So just keep supporting it. Complain, yes, it's right to complain and criticise, but do it professionally and not get so angry and not try and drive the fan base also against these guys. It won't do any good. It won't help you.
All right.
That's my view, guys.
No, and I think there's some validity to it. I think there's another way of looking at it from where we've having started something different with Conte and going in that direction. Ever since we've appointed Conte, things have gotten better in that sense. We got top four. We're still in the top four now. We have made some signings. But I guess fans are just concerned that that trajectory isn't going to continue, especially with clubs around us signing players, and we kind of haven't been able, we're not doesn't seem to be being proactive and stuff like that. And obviously we've been struggling in the last few games from the start of games. For some reason, we keep conceding the first goal. That's obviously got fans a bit tetchy and with a bit of anxiety. But if you take things from now, we're still in top four. We're still in Champions League. We are a few signings away from having a good Conte team, in my opinion. So I don't think all is lost, but it's whether the fans have the patience to get there, or whether they're already starting to run out of patience is a good question. I think if we do have patience, I think fans have had to have a lot of patience over the years for this board. So asking for more patience is a difficult ask in some fans' eyes. But if they do have a bit more patience, maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. But a lot of fans are struggling to see it. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's it. I think Sava's also been a little bit misunderstood. He is a very, very passionate like me fan. Maybe what he feels about the football, like you said, Grandpa, not being exciting, and you find that football exciting. Other people haven't found it exciting, but this is the thing as well. Again, this isn't about the. For me, I'm with you, Brian. I am 100% Conte in. I'm as Conte in as I am Levy out. I don't put any blame on players. I don't put any blame. I would always back the team. I just don't back the board. But yes, where Sava's saying about the style of football, it's again, I think we're brought up on a certain style of football, and we're not just seeing that. And I think just these stats that keep coming out about being 2-0 down for the last 6 games, going 1-0 down at half time, 1-0 at these games, you'd expect lessons to be learned, wouldn't you say, Grandpa?
Yeah. I think the lesson on that losing the first goal is a mental attitude. They're not coming on that pitch ready to go with the passion, but they get it in the second half. So why the hell? It's a mental attitude, and what Conte's got to get to grips with it, and he will. He'll get to grips with it, because he does get to grips with it for the second half. Why can't he do it in the first half? I mean, that's the question, and that's a fair argument, a fair discussion. But that doesn't mean to say Conte should be out and ENIC should be out because they lost, because they nearly won, in fact, from that one match. let's keep our fingers crossed for the 2 games we've got with Manchester City. If we can score or beat them, then you'll all be eating your words. And I'll go for it. I think we might. If we can get a couple of players in time. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Grandpa, you're getting a lot of love in the comments.
As always.
We've got a super chat saying, "Hi guys, Grandpa, you are a legend. Yes, I've supported this club since the 80s. Let us be positive and believe in the team. I'm coming in January with my son from South Africa on the 15th of January. Hope to catch up with you all. Love this club."
Can I just ask if anybody else is getting the echo from you too? Can they put it in the chat? Because I think then I'll know it's my computer and not yours.
We'll get people in the chat to put it down. But Grandpa, thank you very much for calling in. A brilliant call. Really enjoyed it. And I'll see you later.
See you later,
tonight.
Grandpa.
I'll see you later tonight, right?
Right.
Well, I'll see you. I'm pretty sure I'm seeing him later tonight.
There you go.
There you go. Carl says, "Brian, keep screaming at Enoch and Levy. Power concedes nothing without demand. Being nice with ultra-wealthy businessmen invites them to continue taking advantage." Georgiou says, "Love Grandpa, voice of reason, class act."
Do you know what it is? I think we've got to look at as well. And Grandpa does bring up some valid points. And like I said, I'm one that will always speak from the heart. And I think that there is a total disconnect with how Spurs fans want to approach this. There's Levy in people that go after Levy out, and vice versa. It's on both sides of the coin. And I keep saying all we want, no matter what side of the coin you're on, whether you're affected or support Levy in or you support Levy out, Conte in, Conte out, Emerson in, Emerson out, every single one of us and the 774 people watching and the thousands that will watch it after and the 62,000 that go to the ground and the millions that watch it across the world, all we want is a successful Tottenham Hotspur. And a successful Tottenham Hotspur, to me, means Tottenham Hotspur winning trophies or competing for them regularly and winning them and competing with players that can improve the squad and not constantly, when these things happen, hearing about sponsorships, hearing about skyscrapers, hearing about cinemas, hearing about 4x4s. That's not what we supported Tottenham for. Please God, when I have a kid, I'm not going to say, I want you to support Tottenham because they're a great business commercial entity or property magnate with a huge portfolio. I want them to support him because of the love and passion that I have for that club and the history that we have or did have. And that's where we've got to get. We all want a successful Tottenham Hotspur. And passions and tensions are just riding very high on how we get there.
All right, super chat here from Sava says, please stop the lies. I was not angry and I didn't say I've never seen Spurs play well. I said this season. Secondly, I want Enoch out, have for years, just no point him being here if not backed. And we have Andrew Dean says, Stat says Spurs is averaging 2 goals a game and Spurs is having the second highest goals scores ever in their first 16 games. Defence is the problem. Hashtag back Conte. And I agree with that. And honestly, I think there have been lots of games this season where we've had periods where we're playing turgid and bad football. And that's true. But more often than not, we do turn it around and we do seem to get our act together. And that, to me, shows that this manager does have it in him to play good attacking football. We just need to find the right balance. And I think maybe you could argue he's overprotecting the defence because of the talent we have. And maybe if we have better quality defenders, that would be different. Are there any more callers? All right. That is the end of the show, though. What a great show today. Appreciate all the calls, some great debates. I really enjoyed having the chat. We have player ratings for yesterday's game and 5 takeaways coming your way a bit later today. But really appreciate all the callers today. You get Sava, George, my grandpa, brilliant calls. All the super chats, mad super chats today. Thank you so much for all your messages. Really, really appreciate everyone calling in and commenting and everything like that. Brian, thank you for joining me on today's live stream.
Always a
Appreciate
pleasure,
it all.
my friend. Always a
Great
pleasure.
stream, you guys. We'll be back very, very soon. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And we'll see you guys later on. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
Come on, you Spurs.